morning.
Welcome back to Juice in the Morning. I'm your host, Justin Juice Kelly. We are back in the juice box. Today we have Kyle Buck, and I'm sorry I didn't get your name. What is the name over there?
Nick Oakes.
Nick Oakes. Thanks for coming to do the show today, guys. If you guys can tell, my voice is extra deep because I drank a lot of beer and smoked a lot of cigarettes last night. But
thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man. It's Sunday, yeah. It's a beautiful Sunday here in Indiana, man.
Thinking about going to Home Depot, but
not sure if you have enough time. But yeah, so today, I mean, we talked about it and plugged it on Facebook a little bit. We were going to be talking about conspiracies, things like that.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I just wanted to say, congratulations to the podcast. They reached. They did like a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It's an insane amount of time.
For sure.
And I bet it was a blast. Shane and I called in. We had a good little talk. Dead Man's trying to get on the show. I guess he feels like I blackballed him from the podcast.
Really?
So I'm gonna get him on. We'll get him on and let him talk. He's got some very specific feelings about atheism and things like that. So I feel like it'd be pretty interesting.
For sure, absolutely.
Because I believe I believe there's a higher power. So I like to think of the Earth. When they have simulation theory, that's something that I'm a very big proponent of. The thing that I have a problem with is whoever's controlling my simulation is not doing a very good job. I mean, they aren't making me enough money. They need to go do some illegal shit and make my life better, right?
Yeah, just get out of these noobs out here running these horrible simulations.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Like, I mean, we talked about it off the mic. Like, Kanye West supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Is that like who saw that coming?
Well, first of all, and I think the idea of Kanye being predictable in any way, shape, or form is kind of a one of those things you just have to be okay with nowadays. He's just one of these. He's a wild card, from Always Sunny. He's a cultural wild card. You just never know what he's going to do. He's either going to interrupt you while you're getting your award. Yeah. He's going to say George Bush hates black people on the Hurricane Katrina thing, and that's just who he is.
And then support Donald Trump after saying shit like that.
Yeah. Well, see, but did you see today? He kind of switched back. He said that Emma Gonzalez of the he posted on Twitter. He said Emma Gonzalez is my hero,
right?
Which is a very non-Donald Trump supporting thing to say. And so now everyone's like, wait, what do I do? Who do I wait? What?
I honestly think.
But then that's kind of what makes me think maybe he just did it to kind of make people flip that switch,
right?
Are you gonna be able to look at both sides of this, or are you going to have to? It's a very pick team sort of tribal mentality, I think.
Right.
Or it could be like a social experiment.
Maybe, yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Is that it's just
he was complaining a few years ago about how he didn't have money to pay for his clothing line, or how it put him in so much debt. I mean, when money's involved, people will do crazy things.
Right. And it's also, like I said, with back to the simulation theory thing, like. Maybe whoever's controlling this is just trying to see if our heads are going to explode by seeing the things that we see in the social media and the fact that I mean it's crazy that I honestly also think maybe he's just trying to see how far he can go.
Oh
and people will still follow
you can't argue his influence now.
Yeah.
I mean just based on the visceral reaction of so many different people.
We're sitting on a podcast talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen people actually wearing his clothing line. I really thought nobody would wear that stuff.
It's like derelict from Zoolander.
You can derelict my balls. Yeah.
I feel like the Soviet Union is kind of making its way over here with this clothing line. It's all so plain and similar and dark and
just all the same kind of government issued.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, and that's I think that we've talked about the simulation theory, but also the fact that the Ancient Aliens that we talked about, one of the coolest TV shows ever. It was one of the best memes ever as well, with the guy with the crazy hair. Aliens.
Tuscaloosa.
Yeah,
I think that's his name.
And it's a very interesting show. It's one of those things that I think they leave things really ambiguous. So like they're like, well, if this is the way things happen, then this is possible. Like it's a lot of like guessing.
Yeah, very theoretical.
But it's very interesting. Like it's. How do you guys feel? Do you think there are extraterrestrials watching us, or how do you feel about it?
Well, if there are extraterrestrials, then I would assume that they're able to go places that we can't, do things that we don't.
Yeah.
And how else would you gain knowledge of other things or other planets?
Right.
Without letting people know, just by observing them. So it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
If people think it's not, I mean
they're insane if they don't think it's possible.
We as humans right now are coming up with like cloaking devices,
right,
and material to make us invisible. Like we're doing that. Mm-hmm. That's pretty primitive in the way of like the age of space and time. And
the amount of time that we've been around is like infinitesimally, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but small. Like, I mean, it's tiny,
absolutely, the
amount of time of existence.
Yeah.
So, but I do believe, like I said, that I feel like there is a higher power that's like kind of directing things. I'm not going to say that, I'm Christian or Catholic or whatever, because, what's crazy to me is the fact that all of these religions have a higher power. Mm-hmm. So, maybe they are all correct that there is one, but they don't know exactly which one it is, and we're not going to know until we're gone. And it's possible that there's a higher power and there's nothing when we're gone.
Sure, and I'll even take it a step further and say maybe beyond just a higher power, I think there's a higher network of sources. You know what I mean? I just think that the amount of energy that is emitted in just the known universe, you know what I mean? That much energy that can be generated there has to be some type of residual effect throughout, the universe. And I feel like there's a positive and a negative. You can, you can draw on positive energy, which, some people wrap in archetypes, Satan and, Jesus, or, whatever archetype you assume in your religion, you can kind of put these labels on them, but essentially at the base of it, it's positive and negative. And I think that in that way, we can draw on positive and negative just energy in
that's
our
super
known universe.
Insightful too. I like that.
Did you
pick that up from somewhere, or did you like?
Man, I watched so much Joe Rogan. You have no idea. No, but no, seriously. When you say where does that sort of thing come from, it comes from exploring these topics with this gentleman right here to my left. We've known each other since preschool, and he was one of the best men at my wedding, and we just had all these insane talks over the years, maybe on some type of alcoholic substance or otherwise. And so, but we've just explored these things for ourselves and enjoyed hearing all the different types of point of view.
Right.
And that's one of the values I've heard is from, you can hear the most philosophical monk, or you can go listen to the Pope, or you can read the Bible, or you can read Stephen Hawking, and you can kind of pull the same sort of base themes out of it. And I think that is kind of where that sort of opinion comes from. In my point of view, anyway.
And that's awesome that you guys have that ability to sit and just like get deep into those kind of subjects, because very few people out there can actually like handle talking about that. Because one of the last times that I like got really on a rant about aliens and stuff like that, friends were just like, "What are you fucking talking about?"
You just gotta be objective. Like I think that's the thing that Americans really lack is objectivity. Everybody is very subjective in their beliefs and in their perspectives on how they look at things.
It's funny to me that people don't even want to they don't even want to talk about it, because it's just boring to them.
Sure.
And I just think it's so insane to think that they're like, for example, the what is it, the military, like the Air Force had that, there's a video online that you can look up right now, and these guys are talking over their intercom to each other, their radio to each other, and they're like, "Did you guys see that up there?" And he's like, yeah. He's like, "That's moving way faster than us." plus, and they're like in like, you know, F-15 or whatever, F-17 fighters or something like that, and they can't even keep up with whatever the object is in the sky, and it's moving too specifically, like in directions that it can't just be just like a falling like meteorite or something, because it's moving like it's actually got a plan of where it's moving
vertically and kind of
sideways. Like it's
in
just
ways
crazy
that we can't even perceive.
Exactly,
and that's the thing. We as humans can only hear and see a certain spectrum of what is actually out there. There could be beings or things that know these things and just put themselves in a different spectrum. There may be some type of reality like that we have no idea about. And that's the thing. There's so much that we don't know because we are human, and there's so much that we will never be able to know.
And that's frustrating to me.
It's so frustrating.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so frustrating.
You know, a lot of times I've heard folks talk about our 5 narrow slits of, you know, perception, and we can like under 1% of the light spectrum. We can only hear under 1% of the audio. We can only smell certain things. We can, you know, feel certain things, and so on and so forth. And, you know, we only get to perceive this much of our known universe. And, you know, like you said, there could be things there that we don't even see.
Right.
And they could be intelligent enough to avoid us, you know, any other type of with them, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that also, I feel like there's a between, you know, extraterrestrial and potential like paranormal you know, spirits and that sort of thing. You know, I've
goes back to your energy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had experiences that I can't explain. Obviously you can't say for sure that something was a ghost or whatnot, but I know what I saw and know what I felt, and you know what I mean? It's one of those things that I don't really need to convince anyone because I've had that experience, but you know, I think there's definitely something there. I don't think it's just it's gone and it's transferred. The first law of thermodynamics says that energy cannot be created or destroyed; it can only be transferred.
That's insane to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And if humans,
the movie Lucy kind of portrayed that. Was just the transfer of information.
Underrated film.
Oh my goodness, so underrated.
It was. Oh man, it was awesome.
And it's based on. It is based on theory, but there's theory like every percentage that her brain was growing in consciousness, I guess is what it would be.
Right.
She was able to start controlling things, and literally at the end, 100%, she became everything.
Yep.
That's just a theory, but nobody knows the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have a great book that you guys should check out if you haven't already. It's called Rant by Chuck Palahniuk. I think that's how you say his name. He wrote Fight Club and other books like that.
I need to check that out.
But Rant is fucking awesome. It like blew my mind because the majority of the book, you think one thing's happening, and then it dives into the realm of liminal space. So basically, if you exist in liminal space, time doesn't affect you. You literally can move forward and backwards in time. And the way you get there is you kill.
You're describing an experience that I had.
you kill your whoever created you, basically. But to get to the liminal space, I don't want to ruin the book, so I'm not going to like go too far. But
sounds amazing.
But basically, you get yourself as close to death as possible, and in that moment of where everything's slowing down and you're kind of seeing your life flash before your eyes, that's where you're there. But then you have to like, oh man, it's crazy. Like I'm getting way far into it. But you get there, and then you can move backwards in time, and you can move forward in time. But basically, it breaks it down that like all of the people that are the super rich and the super like well off people in our world have been the people that have reached this liminal space, and they are utilizing like all of that to basically become untouchable because they can't be killed because they exist outside of time.
Yeah.
And
sounds a little similar to what
but the book is good, so I suggest reading the book because it'll go through the whole thing, and it's awesome.
What was the movie we were just talking about? Interstellar.
Yep.
Like right at the very end when he was in the black hole and he was going down certain sections and he was seeing the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not the same thing, but it seems kind of similar that they may have took.
Yeah, it's still existing out of the normal space time, at least what we perceive.
And it's It's crazy to think. I mean, obviously, it doesn't exist. But I mean, when you read science fiction from like the 1800s, stuff that didn't exist, they were writing about. One of my favorite books is John Carter from Mars, and they're talking about how the Martians communicate, and they say that they're bouncing signals off of moons and back down to each other to communicate, like with like radios, basically, but like cell phones.
Yeah.
Like that's what that guy was writing about in the 1800s. Like, hey, I think that you could definitely bounce a signal off of a moon and it come back down on the other side of the planet, and it's like. The stuff that we're writing and seeing in movies, like, what if that's just the next like step? Like we're actually preparing ourselves for that.
I actually believe that's like those types of people who have great minds. They get ideas out there that really stick with people. Mm-hmm. I mean, Spielberg has movies that changes people's perceptions. I mean, look at what Star Wars and Star Trek and even Marvel and all those have done for some people. It just it's really nice to see people that have the same ideas and have money to actually portray those ideas. It makes you feel good that something good is going to happen out of it.
Well, I mean, just look at Elon Musk. Like, I mean, that guy may be broke in 50 years because, well, not 50 years because I don't think he's out. I think he's older than that. But basically, what I'm getting at is the fact that he is going after like his dreams and his thoughts, and not really worrying about the fact that it might bankrupt him eventually, like building rockets. And
Nikola Tesla had the idea for a wireless network, and while he was alive, like he had actual sketches of devices that kind of looked similar to what a cell phone. Maybe it was a little brick with some knobs on it.
And wasn't there a conspiracy that like he was killed by like somebody that?
Oh yeah. Well, Edison stole his
idea.
Demonized him in the science world.
Right.
Yeah. His reputation was destroyed. He died with a pigeon as a lover, and so he was kind of an eccentric human, but a brilliant human nonetheless. Right. There was definitely a lot of signs that pointed to his takeover of the massive power, the elite of the day, the Rockefellers and the folks that wanted to make the money. He was trying to give energy to everyone for free, and they're like, we can't have that.
I think that's what Musk is going to have to worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm pretty sure he got approval for his gigawatt factories.
Right.
And I think he said, was it 100,000 or 1,000 that he had to build?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
He said if he had a certain amount of gigawatt factories that everybody would have free energy.
Yeah, and somebody just posted on the Facebook Live, Tesla's work would have meant free energy for everyone, and that's why it was squashed.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
That's from Colleen Kelly. Thank you, Colleen. That was
absolutely.
He actually had the idea for the light bulb as well,
right?
And he wanted to make that free, and Edison was like, "Are you nuts?" And Edison was also with J.P. Morgan. He was funded through J.P. Morgan,
of course.
So JP's like, well, we can make tons of money off of this.
Absolutely. He took what he could harness from Nikola Tesla, and he would have these shows where he electrocuted elephants.
Oh yeah,
which is just
I listened
insane.
to that on How Stuff Works podcast.
Yeah, it's just insane. They would electrocute these animals to prove how powerful electricity was, and how many homes we could give electricity to. And
Edison would sabotage his he would sabotage Tesla's like demonstrations purposely just to make him look like he's a quack.
That's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it goes back to what we were talking about with the on a smaller scale of this, like, because we were talking about stuff we don't know. So on a smaller scale, I mean, there's stuff in our existence of like our world politically and things like that we don't know. So it's what and what I wanted to get to at that point is, it is frustrating, and I've also thought. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live like multiple lives so that I could actually do all of the stuff that I wanted to do? So like, for example, like, I love doing the podcast. I love my job, but like this is, 1/8 of like the careers that I would have loved to have pursued or like started young and like gotten good at. But it's crazy to think that like I wish that we could live that. And if you could live a different life, what would you have chosen to change or do differently if you could live multiple lives?
To be able to take the knowledge from each life to life.
There you go.
That's, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Is you want to be, because think of how long it's taken you to get the knowledge that you have now.
Right.
And I'm like, God, if it was just 5 years ago, this would have made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of what reincarnation is, at its base, except, in reincarnation, you would start fresh. You wouldn't have any memories, no prior knowledge. I think you hit the nail on the head. I would, if that was the situation where there was, a new life to be lived and you could live it with the knowledge of the prior one, I think just building that accumulation would be,
that'd be insane.
If you knew, for instance, that you had 5 lives and after 5 lives, it was whatever was the unknown, you could utilize, you would be motivated to try and accumulate as much as you could in each one of those,
right?
To move on. Some people wouldn't, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think you'd waste? Like, I feel like I'd waste at least one of them. Like, I'm gonna do all the drugs and do all the crazy shit that.
Well, and that also, it's insane to think about how different your experience would be based on where you were born into.
Right.
Like, that would be the X factor. Is am I born in the same hospital in the same town? Am I, kind of reliving that cycle, or
is it different every time?
Your life's can be very different if you're born in the third world.
Right.
That's just the fact of it. So that's a pretty deep thing to think about, man. That's a brain teaser.
I was having a conversation similar to this with I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the side.
Shane actually, that's not here today, he had car trouble. He actually does Jiu-Jitsu as well. So he hasn't been into it for a while. I think he's trying to get back into into a gym and doing some
gotta get him over to my gym.
Yeah,
they would love to have him over there.
That would be awesome. I want to try it out just because I want to see somebody just whip my ass, because I'm not a fighter, and I want to learn. I want to learn some maybe some self-defense type stuff, because I'm a pretty big guy, but I literally have been in, I think, 2 fights my entire life.
Size does not matter in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and that's
the great thing about
it. I'm sorry we're getting off on a tangent, but I was listening to a Rogan podcast where he had a guy on there, and they were talking about, they basically talked about jiu-jitsu the entire time, and they were just saying how size doesn't matter, because specific people that are shorter have an advantage because of this. People that are taller and lankier have an advantage because of this. They were just talking about how you use every advantage that you have based off your body type, as opposed to just overpowering somebody or just beating somebody's ass. Basically.
Yeah, it's an equalizer, man. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's the universe. There's a positive and a negative to everything. There's always a move that can be countered in jiu-jitsu. Nobody's ever found a move that works and you can't counter or block.
Yeah,
there's a counter to every move. And that's
kind of how life is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy to it's crazy to have those analogies that work for both things. I think that something that I want to do, also talk about, is the fact that we're doing this right now. It's crazy to think that the entire world's moving along no matter what. So it doesn't really matter if you're here or if you're there. But I also think about that energy thing. And I started to believe this just a little bit in the past year. I've thought of this as with the podcast, the positive momentum going forward. If I stopped, it would stop immediately. It's almost like when you're working out, you're in good shape, but as soon as you stop, it's gone. It takes you forever to get to in shape. But then as soon as you stop, it's gone. I think energy is the same way, because, if I was to just take today off because I was hungover this morning, that it would have probably thrown you off. It probably would have thrown you guys off. And then that hurts that relationship. And it's just crazy how energy, it is always moving forward if you keep it moving forward. And if you don't,
absolutely,
it just stops immediately.
And the amazing thing about experiencing life on Earth as a human being is that you can control that energy.
Yeah.
We have, the choice to do what, is going to create a positive energy. We have the choice to do what's going to create negative energy. And, that just kind of good energy breeds good and bad breeds bad. That's.
Do you guys believe in destiny at all? Like it's like destined,
like predestined.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
In a way, I don't think there's a.
Sorry to interrupt you. By the way, I was just
no. That's a very valid question.
I was just thinking that.
I don't think there's a tablet with your name on it that says you start here, you'll end here,
right.
and there'll be stuff in between. I think there's possibility, which in a form is destiny, because you can have a possibility to be great, you can have a possibility to be terrible, or you can just have a possibility to be neutral.
Right.
There's millions of possibilities out there, so I would say that that's the closest thing to destiny that I would believe in.
Yeah, and I also like I agree with that too, and I also on a different like kind of agreement is what you were talking about. You're born into, like, say you're born into a family that is wealthy. You're like, to me, that's kind of like destiny because you have way more opportunity because you have all this like behind you, and being born into something that is like poverty, it's going to be a lot harder to get to where that place is. That the person that like it's almost like the person you're playing a video game and the person started out with all their lives and all their equipment, and the other person started with nothing and they got to figure out how to get all of that stuff. And you're setting up the rest of your lineage basically based off the work that you do, which is crazy to think too.
That's that transfer of energy.
Don't get me started on bloodlines
and information.
and I've thought I've honestly thought that bloodlines are like something that is actually that's a thing that certain ones may have a better advantage from the very beginning because of however the genetics are.
Have you heard of epigenetic memory?
No, I have not.
Epigenetic memory is simply that the DNA genetic code passed through a bloodline could still harvest some memories of trauma. Maybe not specifically what specifically happened, but there would be like a higher chance of anxiety in people that have been highly traumatized in their children and whatnot.
The transfer of PTSD.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that we don't necessarily need to go down this rabbit hole, but for anyone who's ever looked into MK Ultra mind control or the Project Monarch.
I love the MK Ultra.
Yeah, that's one of the theories behind it is that these bloodlines were created and through the process of trauma throughout those bloodlines, they're able to maintain control of these bloodlines. So whoever, is pulling the strings, the people behind the curtain, whatever you want to say, would, use this epigenetic memory that is a real thing to control these people, making it farther down the bloodline. The more trauma there is in the bloodline, the easier these people are to break and control at a young age, meaning that they can create more monarchs and more, representatives and not I didn't mean political representatives, but, it can be anyone who you would need to do a specific task, whether it be a huge entertainer, and this is completely theoretical,
it's crazy,
look into it for yourself. But it's a pretty insane thing. Trauma-based, genes and that sort of thing can travel through bloodline. And so,
I think those genes can be changed. I mean,
I think so too.
Proven that
absolutely
DNA can be altered in different ways.
Yeah. Can you imagine what the medical field is going to be like, 50 years from now? It's
25.
Yeah.
It's going to be insanely different.
Yeah,
Stem cells.
I made a joke on the podcast before, and I may not have actually recorded it. It's just a note in my phone, but I've said I think there's going to be an Amazon for organs, in just a very short amount of time. Because if they are able to engineer an organ, you're going to be able to just get on Google and be like, I need a liver.
Stem cells are nuts, man. They're really doing some crazy shit with
I need
stem
an
cells.
eye.
That's definitely the future. They can literally grow an eye and an eye socket from stem cells.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
It's nuts.
Well, you're a Joe Rogan listener. Did you hear about them injecting stem cells into bad knees or bad backs?
Well, Mel Gibson was on there with
he's a fucking
with his doctor. Yeah,
I love him, but man, they were crazy.
Yeah. Well, he showed up there with his doctor. Well, his father's doctor, and I saw it advertised as, Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan. I'm like, heck yeah, I haven't, heard from Mel in forever. What's this kook got to say? But turn on there and he talks for like the first 10 minutes, just tells a brief story about his dad, and then he just hands it off to the doctor. He and Joe talk about stem cells, and it was extremely interesting.
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorites.
He completely reversed his 92-year-old father's knee problems with arthritis, vision problems, testosterone problems, put him in about as good a health as you can be at 92, and kind of gave him some more life to live. And I thought that was an insane thing to do.
Yeah.
Any procedure now, that's a common practice right now is always very risky to do on elderly folks. And, the fact that just stem cells themselves could, create this immense, benefit in this man's life was incredible. But what's also insane is he had to go to Costa Rica to do it or something like that?
South America or something.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those things, don't you guys also feel, I would hope that everybody agrees with this, is why do we have these restrictions so that people that have money can make more money. And I also understand the safety and the human component, I guess. But in my mind, it's the same analogy that I have for baseball and sports. Let them do all the steroids. Let them get giant and superhumans out there playing our sports. Do the same thing with medicine. Test whatever you want to do if it's going to be in the forward progression. But I understand, like I said, there's probably going to be people out there suffering because of this. But I'm fully on board with seeing how far we can get, as opposed to putting restrictions on stuff to slow it down.
Yeah,
I don't know. People might disagree with me.
There's people suffering now, so there's always going to be people suffering. I'm kind of in the same boat, just because I want to see psychedelics become legal.
Yeah.
I want to see drugs become legal, not for the use, for the testing of what they could do for a person.
Right.
Everything in moderation. From what I've learned, I'm a huge dieter. I'm on the keto diet. I've studied it for 5 years. I've not written any books. I'm just interested in it.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff is something that we have to look at. These things are really curing things.
Yeah.
Mushrooms and psilocybin are curing. I don't want to say curing. It's reversing PTSD in people who have taken 5,000 pills a year.
Right.
Their minds are being altered from the pills and the PTSD, and they're getting help. They're in 1 to 3 uses, and it's around a 60% success rate in medicine.
Yeah.
I believe is around a 30 to 20% success rate.
That's crazy.
With almost 100% remission.
Yeah, I actually read MDMA as well. Microdosing it has shown tons of benefits in depression and anxiety and stuff like that.
Alcoholism.
Alcoholism and even opioid use. Iboga is being used a lot for.
Have you guys heard of the ayahuasca? The people going down there and doing those.
I plan on taking a trip in my lifetime.
I don't think I can handle it, man. I don't think I could. It's
as being a human being, I feel like that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's where we're here to experience. I feel like the universe was created because of its form. It can't experience the things that we're experiencing right now, but it's a part of us. So in a form, it is experiencing it, but through us.
That's insane. That's very meta and pretzeled my brain a little.
Bill Hicks said it perfectly when he said that we're all subjective beings, experiencing reality. Well, hold on a second. I'm over here trying to remember this paraphrase, but essentially the paraphrase is that we're all just individuals experiencing our own little version of what this is.
Yeah.
And if we have the ability and the courage, not to disparage anyone that isn't into it, but it takes a lot of courage to put an unknown plant into yourself that could give you an experience that you don't know. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of unknown.
Oh, very much a lot of fear for me.
Yeah. And naturally, you know what I mean? But to be able to allow yourself to make yourself vulnerable to whatever, is thrown at you is pretty insane. And I think that,
it's humbling.
It's
very humbling.
It's definitely one of those things that, I've, had to, I don't know. I guess the way I'm trying to describe it is just that, it's one of those things that needs to be done so you can just have a different perspective, I guess.
I go party and laugh and, you can have that, but those things are meant to be here for medicinal purposes.
Yeah,
it's to get our consciousness where it needs to be.
Yeah. Somebody just asked where's Shane on the Facebook Live. Shane had car trouble. He wasn't able to make it today. He will be back next week, I'm assuming. Sorry, just had to get that in there. Really quick though, what do you like? Because you talked about you had experiences. I want to tell you guys real quick mine, and then I want to ask you about like stuff you've experienced in your life, like with like paranormal or whatever.
Sure.
Or maybe even like an alien type thing. But for me, I've had sleep paralysis, which when you look it up, there's scientific reasoning for everything. But at the same time, it's really freaky. I heard a voice one time, and I was like, I've scoured the internet, and I've not found anybody that heard voices. They've seen, a figure. They've like felt like they're being pinned down on the bed, but I've not seen anybody that's like said, I actually heard somebody talking to me. And I'll tell you guys really quick my story of, the first time it happened. I woke up, but you're not really awake because you can't move. I felt like I was stuck, and I felt like I literally I tried to yell, I couldn't yell, and then so I started to think I was like I'm talking with my mind, so I'm like, am I dead? And then I will shit you not, a voice it was like a really loud noise in my ears, and then all of a sudden there was I knew there was a presence, and then I was like I'm dead. And then I thought, are you, this is literally what I said to this, whatever I thought it was. I said, are you God or the devil? And the thing literally said, we are one and the same. And I was like, holy shit, I'm freaking out. And I'm trying to move. I'm like, just move your arm or something like that. And I can't move. And then I hear the, and then the sound is gone. And the presence I feel is gone, and then I can move, and I get up, and I was terrified.
Wow, you need to write a script.
and I
send that to Paramount.
I had no idea what was happening, and it freaked me out, and I didn't really look it up. I didn't feel I was just that was really fucked up. I was and then it happened again, and I was laying on the couch in my apartment in college, and I was laying on my side facing the wall away from the TV, and once again I heard the noise, and I'm like, oh, it's fucking happening again.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out, getting scared, and I look up, and there's writing on my wall, but it's the light from the TV is making but I can't read it. It's just weird, I don't know what writing it is, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm freaking out, and but I'm more calm because I know this has happened before. It's gonna end, and so same thing, and then it's just gone. And I wake up and I look at my TV, and my TV's playing whatever Office rerun that I was watching or something like that, and it just
does this sound similar to you?
It was just crazy as fuck.
A little bit,
but it's just one of those things that there is scientific explanations. I've read it that you're in your dream state or whatever. So there's chemicals in your body making you kind of hallucinate
DMT
while you're in between sleep and awake. So your mind is awake, but your body can't move.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Do you want to hear something that's really going to blow your mind now?
Yeah.
I experienced that same exact thing that you're talking about, but on psychedelics.
Really?
I think it's a reality or a dimension.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think when we're dreaming, because it is. It's what he said. It's DMT being released in your brain when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Psilocybin is on the same spectrum. I don't want to say the same realm, but the same spectrum of DMT. So, when you were explaining it, like my heart started to race because I have experienced that, and it was like I was repicturing it, and mine was the same way. I was in this. You were explaining the floating in darkness and going whichever way. I was at that point, nothing around, and I just shot off, and this voice. I have no idea what the writing was, but I started to chant it with her like she was controlling me. Or
I'm getting goosebumps. Like,
dude,
yeah.
That's exactly what I was getting when you were explaining that. In my opinion, I think that is just a dimension that we go to, and when you do that and you experience it, like you said, you were more comfortable. Like that's what it's. That's to tie it all together. When you first asked, what are those here for? What are we here for? Like, that's what we're experience those things and become one with that. The greatest thing in the universe is to be a universe.
Right.
Why else would we be here?
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's interesting what you heard in your voice, because I think that's completely true. From a philosophical standpoint, when you say we are one and the same, in a scenario where, God, or the source energy, or however you want to refer to that archetype, if that is the source of all being or energy or life in the universe, then the devil has to be an extension of that. And I think that
why it's still, I will always wonder why that's the first place my mind went when I was I was dead.
Because it was just something you'd never experienced before.
Yeah. I mean, but we're as little kids, that's what our grandparents, back then in like the 40s and 50s, that was huge. Religion is what carried the United States. And so, I mean, we were just coming out of that to believe that, we don't really need that it's kind of controlling, and on to that conspiracy another time. But that's what we were conditioned to learn as a kid, and that's always going to be in our subconscious. So, and that's the earliest thing that we learned, and that's what our brain is going to revert to first, and then it's going to that's not true. Let's step up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah. And like I said, like, it's crazy because the sleep paralysis thing has never gone away. Like, I mean, it still happens on a fairly regular basis to me. I mean, I haven't had it happen, I think, it's over a year since the last time, but I'm completely comfortable with it now. Like, I literally, when it happened, the very last time it happened, there was no like sound or voice or anything like that. But I just I popped out. And like, I knew I couldn't move, and I was like, it was just like Kill Bill, just wiggle your big toes. Just wiggle your toes, and then you can start to like work your way out of it.
Yeah.
They also call that, because I listen to like tones at night.
Binaural beats.
Yeah. But it's to get you to that, they call it the astral plane.
Yeah.
But it's called astral projection, I think is what it is.
I had Sarah Hawking on the podcast. She's a I want to say, like, I don't want to say psychic because I don't know if
related
that's I don't know
Stephen Hawking.
No, but I don't want to say psychic because I don't know if that's what she calls herself. But
Medium?
She's basically
clairvoyant.
Yeah, she has ability, and she's over in Australia. But she called into the show and she talked about because what is it? I texted her one time and was like, I'm seeing the color purple a lot. And she was like, well, purple's associated with royalty. And then she was like talking about, she broke it down because literally it's weird to think like you start to observe stuff and you see it and it's like, it's very, very consistent. I know that there's also a scientific background for that too.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
But like, my little sister has it as well, where she'll see numbers a lot, like the same numbers, and I think that's very interesting. I always give her a hard time because I think she's just bullshitting or whatever, but I think that she might be seeing something that actually like has a momentum or an energy that we've talked about.
To kind of come back full circle, that's one of the signs of simulation theory. Is a lot of people say that
I'm gonna blow your mind here in a minute.
that they say, you know, I see the same numbers all the time, or I see the same animals all the time, or I see the same, you know, I notice this logo or this symbol all over the place. I always notice it if it's around.
Right.
And you know, some people have said that that's a sign of simulation theory. So
I've always been infatuated with space and Orion's belt. I never knew what it was called, but every time as a kid I looked up there, I could always spot it. I've always been that way. By the time I was 20, my wife now, I told her we were having a boy. She was like, all right. And I said, we're going to name him Orion. And she's like, okay, whatever. And sure enough, we had a boy. We named it Orion.
Yeah.
He was born on 2/13/13 at 12:23. All.
Jeez.
So, I mean, like
the Holy Trinity, man.
Yeah.
it's how stuff ties together. Is this simulation theory? I mean, it's definitely a possibility because the examples are there. I mean, it's actually it's been proven that the mathematics
Work
behind
out.
informatics and that it works out. So how much
they asked man, what's his name? He is the astrophysicist that's like real popular.
Neil deGrasse Tyson? Yeah.
They asked him about simulation theory, and it kind of blew my mind. He just like, I'm going to butcher it, but basically he said, you know, Mario doesn't know he's being controlled. Mario thinks he's real. Yeah. Mario doesn't know that you're controlling him, making him jump and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, if you think of that and you extrapolate that out, you know, that could be somebody controlling us. He's like,
sure.
It's very possible. Like, I love his take on the world, how he's not going to shoot something down just because maybe he doesn't specifically believe it, but he's like, I see there's a possibility for that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the theme of being controlled by an outside source, for a lot of people, that's God. You know, for a lot of people, it's
comforting.
Or your gut bacteria. It's actually a real possibility that we have no control over us.
Right.
It's the bacteria in our gut sending the signals to our brain.
I've heard that.
That's controlling us.
That's crazy to think too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the craziest thing is if you don't have the perception, that's not a possibility.
Yeah.
If you have the perception, it's a possibility.
Sure.
So what even is real at that point? Like, you know, I mean,
that's still fucking crazy.
It's insane. But yeah, no, that's a really, you know, it's what I love so much about, you know, conspiracies, whether they be, you know, political, whether they be based around terrorist events, or whether they be based around whatever, you know, it's the thrill of the unknown. You know what I mean? At least for me, that has me interested in the topic, and you know, if something's different, something's weird, you know, I like to learn about it. I like to know both sides, you know, and try to come up with my own opinion, and you know, have fun talking to, you know, other folks about it. You know what I mean?
Keyword opinion.
Right.
Yeah. That's
all we have.
Yeah, because the word theory is in there for a reason.
Yeah, and it's hilarious because I'm that kind of person that anytime I see anything or read anything or see anything, I'm like, what's the other angle to this? Like,
you have to be. Yeah.
You know, that's the way I feel when I see, you know, any. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but whenever I see a breaking news story of some kind,
Sorry,
you know,
guys.
it's all good. Whenever I see a breaking news story, whatever it is, you know, I always think to myself, okay, what else could be coming out of this that we maybe aren't being shown?
What agenda is behind this?
And not that there always is to everything, because that's absolutely not the case, but in so many situations there have been ulterior motives that, you know, I'm just kind of gotten to the point now where I'm like, okay, you know, it's almost like, you know, the boy who cried wolf, you know what I mean? That there have been so many shady situations that the legitimate ones, you know, gain a little bit of, you know, suspicion from, you know, my point of view, and that's not always warranted, but, you know, it's just kind of the way I see it.
I mean, as soon as like sports, I'm like, man, that's rigged. that's I mean, People were calling out the Pacers. Like, that's the game that's going on right now.
Oh, is refs just right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so upset that I'm missing.
we're missing.
I'm like super happy that I'm here.
We're missing Game 7.
Yeah.
But
what's the score, by the way?
I can look that up real quick.
Sorry.
But no, the NBA has been specifically called out. Like, the refs are affecting the outcome of the game.
Oh yeah,
Right,
I mean
definitely.
that one guy went down for throwing games, right? That
Yeah.
one ref went
what
down
was his
for
name?
I can't
Daughtery?
remember his name.
I don't know if you want to know the score.
I called it. I told everybody that LeBron was going to go off.
It's I mean, obviously we're in the middle of a podcast, but it's 19-31. Cavaliers over the Pacers right now in the first end of the first quarter.
Oh, we got time.
Yeah, we've got time.
I've learned that the NBA, like you can't just. And let's go on to a conspiracy about it. If a team's blowing a team out back in the day, stopped watching it.
Right.
Can't do that now.
Yeah.
These teams are going on 30, 40-point runs that normally never happens.
Yeah.
So you have to stay watching
Right.
it. You have to keep viewing it.
Well, and do you guys remember the conspiracy theory about Jordan? About the fact that the time that he went to baseball was he was going to get suspended for betting and for betting on I think actually his games or whatever, and they were like, well, you can do that, or you could go play baseball for a year or two or whatever. I don't know how long he was gone.
Let me add on to that.
And he's a notorious gambler. I mean,
all that is true, but it wasn't because of the NBA. It was because of the mob.
Oh, really?
He was doing it for the mob. He was making the mob money, and the NBA told him this. Did not know that he was in with the mob.
Right.
He told the mob. The mob said, "You better do this, or you get out of basketball, and or go play baseball or whatever." That's one of the that it was the mob that killed his dad. Number one.
Somebody just posted that on the Facebook Live. Thanks. They killed his dad because of his debt.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And then it rolled over into his baseball playing career.
Goodness gracious!
Because you can fix baseball games,
which was murder in and of itself.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even though he played in the minor leagues, it's Michael Jordan.
Right. Yeah. People are going to go watch it.
Yeah, they're going to go watch.
It's like Tebow right now, playing in the minor league or whatever. Like
he's going to be in the majors soon.
It's probably making tons of money for whoever has him on the field.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's going to be in the majors soon.
Yeah.
He's even if he can't hit, he's just a
well,
beast on the field.
And that's really interesting in and of itself. The way that I've also got another conspiracy theory about Major League Baseball this year. I feel like Giancarlo Stanton was probably a result of the Jeter becoming the GM of the Marlins, and then all of a sudden their best player goes to the Yankees.
Yeah,
come on, but
he's a huge Yankee fan.
Yeah, get out of here with that Yankee shit. North side all day. Yeah, no, the Mets, if you're buying a baseball ticket in New York, you're probably going to see the Yankees. With that lineup and Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, just plus all the young players they got there, they're scary for the next few years. And a lot of people are going to see their tickets and go see their shows, buying tickets and games. I'm just over here in entertainment mode. But no, they need to sell some tickets on the other side of town. And the Mets picked up Tim Tebow. He's actually starting to hit the ball. And I guess you can learn in the outfield. I mean, you are in the National League. You can't have a DH position, so
right.
He's running through the walls. He's robbing home runs, not even jumping, just running through walls. he's like,
he just leaves an imprint in the wall.
That's what I was just about to
when
say.
you see him beside like an actual baseball player, it's like, Jesus Christ, is that a monster? A Nephilim?
He looked like Mark McGwire when he was playing for the Athletics.
Oh my gosh. I had a baseball card. Like, I clearly an idiot and I've lost all those things, but I had a baseball card of Mark McGwire and he looked like a superhero. It was insane.
Oh yeah.
Him and Sammy Sosa beside each other look like Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Just the ebony and ivory version.
Yeah, this is kind of off topic, but me and one of my best friends when we were 10 or 11 went as Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, and my mom painted a goatee on me and she painted his face black. And I was like, oh, life in the 90s, man. That would have been on social media and been all over the place.
You guys would have been killed.
Persecuted. Yeah, we didn't have any ill will. It's just that, we didn't have a Sammy Sosa mask or anything. And so,
Your mom would have been fighting she would have been fighting hands down.
Oh yeah.
Fighting
well,
with your
and
mom.
you know that there was no ill intent,
No,
so
and that's
anything would be unwarranted.
Yeah.
But you
Shane
know,
and
still,
I talk about that on a very regular basis. That if somebody makes a joke, just to make the joke like as something like that, you can't really hold them to a different level because it's not in like a bad intent. Like he's always on intent. Like,
it's always intent.
It's always about intent. Yeah, absolutely.
I had that experience on
intent and consent. If you have a doubt, don't pull it out.
Did you also hear there's a conspiracy theory about the McGregor thing where they said that a lot of those guys were potentially going to get busted for steroids. So the guys that were like medically cleared, like they couldn't fight, they were saying that potentially they were going to get a test positive, and like so okay.
I have not heard about this.
So the big theory is, like, the overarching theory is somehow McGregor got shares of UFC, like basically like him and Dana White worked out something like, you're going to get this amount of shares, but I need you to come down here and do this because these guys are going to test positive for steroids. Wow. I need you to come down and do this. It's going to make us all a ton of money eventually because people are going to want to see you come back.
Conor Khabib in Russia, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then and that's what, like, they say that this was like almost like a professional wrestling stunt. Come down, do this. That gets these guys out so they don't get in trouble, and it doesn't taint our name of the UFC. And then, you know, you might have to spend, like, you know, a couple hours in jail, but then you'll get out, and then we'll just build this up to another giant mega fight.
That is brilliant.
And
wow.
That is freaking brilliant.
I mean, if that's true, man, that's it's genius.
Yeah.
You know, if it works out, you know.
Hey, Dana and Vince are really good friends.
Yeah, well, and you know, there was also, isn't there word that Dana might be looking to sell the UFC?
I have not heard that.
I've heard that Vince McMahon was super interested.
Like, wanting to buy it.
Wants to buy the UFC.
How many more years does Vince have? Like, isn't he like super fucking old?
Yeah, he's getting there, man.
Super steroids he's taking. That's what it is.
Was he supposed to be bringing back the XFL too? Right?
Oh, I'm all in on that.
Oh, hell yeah!
I want to see that.
Hell yeah!
Even if they
all the pissed off guys that didn't get to the NFL are like, yes.
Even if they tone it down a little bit because they said they were going to have it a little bit more PG-13 than they did back in the day.
Oh yeah, because like they couldn't show games before like 10 p.m.
Right.
Back in the 90s, and if you had to wait till after 10 p.m. in the 90s, you were really throwing around some nasty shit back then. I mean, nowadays, you know, it's a, you know, a little bit more strict, but back then, they showed Ren and Stimpy on Nickelodeon, for crying out loud, which is another really interesting conspiracy, just showing all the like subliminal weird shit they put in cartoons. Back in the days, I mean, you could go deep into like the Disney thing, but like, I mean, even just like Nickelodeon shows, go back and watch like Rocko's Modern Life
or Dildo's Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
I never not see that now when I watch that movie.
My goodness.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, like we can get back to that, but the XFL real quick. If I am going to be so pissed because they're saying they're not going to have the fight for the football for like the first like possession or whatever. Oh. Man, like
that
that's
doesn't
like
make it the XFL though.
That was the best thing.
I think that's safer than kickoff.
Oh, it is.
I honestly don't think football is going to be around much longer because of all the head injury and like people killing people.
I think there's too much money in it that there's no way it's going to go anywhere.
See, I heard I heard different. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that they're hurting to pay these players what they should be paid, and that's what's going to hurt them. Is these players know what they have to go through? I mean, what's the average lifespan in like playing in the NFL? Is like 4, 5, 6 years. Or something
it can't be that much.
It's very. I mean, these players aren't making enough money to go through that kind of thing, and now players are getting smarter. They're not letting them smoke weed, which has shown to help head injuries.
Right.
There's just a lot of factors that I think are going to play, not just money itself, and eventually it's going to be a dying sport, unfortunately.
And there are a lot of players who said that they don't want their kids to play football.
Yeah. Aaron Foster is really. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about that. He said, I made millions of dollars playing football. I'll never tell my son to play football. Yeah. He needs to go be a neuroscientist or a lawyer or some kind of doctor, because that's what Arian was going to study. He was going to study that. And
I mean, it's crazy to think though. Like, I mean, the NFL is still I want to say they are they label themselves as a nonprofit or something. Not nonprofit. What is it that they like? They're tax exempt, basically.
Yeah.
And
well, it's if I remember correctly, it's some sort of distinction like. Oh goodness gracious! Sorry, I thought I had it on my tongue.
Yeah, but it's just crazy that I feel like there is like a situation where they don't pay that many taxes.
Oh yeah,
if
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game.
And it's insane that they do have that. I mean, that much money. Like, I mean, it's to buy a team. Like, just imagine that. Like, it's
They're
it's crazy that people can do that
now. They used to be millions, and now, what was it? Was it the Clippers that sold for like 3 point some million or billion?
I have no idea.
It was like 2 point some $billion, or it was for sale for that.
It always makes it makes me wonder. So if you did have like unlimited resources, what would you do? Because they always ask that question, and that's how you're supposed to figure out what you would do for a profession.
I mean, so your life goes good. Mm-hmm. You would have to disperse that out to other people. Yeah. If you have an unlimited amount of money, people are going to find out. People are going to know.
Yep.
And if you want to enjoy some type of life, even if you have unlimited amounts, why not just give it to give them millions or billions of dollars, but make people happy.
Yeah.
Let them know that if they go on vacation, they're not going to be behind on bills, or if they want to go to a movie, they're not going to miss a payment on something.
Right.
Well, and if I were to have an unlimited amount of money, I mean, I feel like there would need to be some type of a selection process, but I feel like I would just want to fund all the things that are amazing ideas that just don't have funding. You know what I mean? Obviously, you can't just throw money at stuff and hope it works. But that's what's so, kind of the tether that pulls back progression is, we have the resources, we have the ability, we have the minds to get it done. It's just that there's the funding to produce it. Mm-hmm. And if I had the unlimited amount of funds, I mean, I would try to do all I could to try and just fund those progressive projects, because there are some amazing organizations and amazing individuals, like Elon Musk. Imagine if Elon Musk had the funding at the age of 20,
right,
or whatever. You know what I mean? Imagine what he could do, let alone, the minds that we don't even know of, or I'm just forgetting to mention. So, I think that would definitely be something that would have to happen.
Think about if we cut the military budget in half. Isn't it like $600 billion? Or something
I
like that.
have no clue, insane. But it's an insane amount.
I mean, imagine if we cut that in half and gave it to NASA or Elon Musk or somebody who's trying to technology-wise advance us as humans.
Yeah,
I was reading an article that NASA, we could be in these types of environments that are not simulated but connected with being basically like the International Space Station.
Yeah.
We would be in environments like that, and we would be able to travel to and from easily, like within an hour. Mm-hmm. And because they have no funding, we're going to be hundreds of years behind with that.
Which is why SpaceX is going to do way more than NASA ever could, because they don't have to worry about government funding.
No. They take care of it themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had something and now I lost it.
That happens, man. It's a simulation, man. You forgot to hit save.
Exactly. The guy's over here fucking around, not keeping track of me. He's just letting me run wild.
His pizza went off in the other room.
I was going to say his mom forgot to bring the meatloaf.
Mom, where's my meatloaf?
Oh no, I know what I was going to say. So there's another thing that my one of my favorite teachers of all time, he posed a question to us. He was like, for an unlimited amount of money, you can have you can have everything you want in the world possible, but you can't swim in a pool. And so then the instant reaction everybody gives is, well, can I swim in the ocean? Can I jump in a lake? Can I but then he, as soon as we started answering those and asking our questions to him, he was like, think about it. This is what being a human is. He's like, I told you could have everything in the world. I was
just about to say this.
But all you're thinking about is how you can get around this pool idea and still get into water.
Yeah.
He's like, that's what it means to be human.
You're getting around your restrictions.
I was like, did nobody say, okay, so what? I got everything else. I'm not going to have time to jump in the pool.
Exactly.
I know I don't have time to jump in the pool.
Right. So, I mean, I just think that's just like a common theme that we've talked about. Like, it's just, that's the first thing that we think about is the one thing we can't have.
Yeah.
I would look at that as a glitch because it's steering you off the path that you should be going down.
Yeah. I think it's also like it's a question that is designed to make you think of like other ways of like getting into water, bodies of water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the people that there might be people out there though that you pose that question to them and they don't think about that, and maybe they're maybe somebody that's thinking on a little bit higher of a level.
Sure. And also, it just says so much about human psychology. Have you ever watched anything by Darren Brown?
I've heard the name.
He's got something on Netflix right now called The Push, which I haven't watched.
I gotta see it.
I've seen his stuff on YouTube, and it's absolutely insane. He's a mentalist essentially, and he's able to manipulate the human psyche and get people to do things. Like at one point, he went to a racetrack and he used just a bunch of bill-sized pieces of paper to bet all night. But the way he was distracting the cashier and the way that he was, using sounds and keywords with these people, he was able to convince them that they were actually taking real money.
Right.
Well, he has to get back to your point where you're saying like people are fascinated by the things they cannot do. He did an incredible experiment where he had a woman in a room with a kitten in a box, and that kitten was attached to a battery, and the cage would become electrified if she pressed a button. Mm-hmm. Of course, it was all fake.
Yeah.
No animals were harmed in the making of this video, but she had to be in that room for 5 minutes by herself, and she would get 250 pounds to them in Britain. She would get 250 pounds for not pressing the button. Do not press the button. And he explained it to her for like 2 to 3 minutes, but every time he said do not, every time he said the word not, he clicked his pen. Mm-hmm. Do not, do not, do not. And he kind of drilled it into her head. Well, at 4 seconds left, it was about to be it was 20 minutes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She had to be in there for 20 minutes. With 4 seconds left, she kind of looked over at the cat, and with 1 second left, she pressed the button to electrocute the cat. The one thing she was not supposed to do to get the money.
Yeah.
She could have walked out of there with 250 pounds for 20 minutes worth of sitting around, but because he drilled this into the back of her head, she kept thinking about it.
Yeah.
She kept thinking about it, and she ended up doing it.
Wow.
Which is, an amazing part of the human psyche, and that's kind of what he was saying, was like the more we tell people not to do things, a lot of times the more focused they are on doing those things.
Yeah.
Because it's not always about the threat of authoritarian reaction. It's not always about the threat of being arrested, not about the threat of being in trouble. Mm-hmm. People will deal with that, but they just want to do the thing they're told not to do.
Right.
That's what a lot of psychology majors have to do, like their like one of their ending projects.
There's like thesis.
Yeah, they. I know I have a friend who was, I believe she's a behavioral. She's a type of behavioral therapist, but she studied behavioral cognitivity in children and stuff like that. But one of her assignments is she had to go to a bar, restaurant, whatever, order a drink and get it for free. Mm-hmm. And she had little steps that she had to take, and like every time she said the word, I can't remember if it was a certain word she had to say. Mm-hmm. She would like tap the desk, or she would snap her finger, or whatever it was, and you had to end up getting the drink for free.
Yeah.
And somehow there's a way that you can control people's minds or make them take off the aspect of what they need from it, and she got her drink for free.
And that kind of goes back to the MK Ultra thing. That's one of the things that they utilize. A lot of people say that our billboards and our TV commercials and all that.
MK Ultra? I have not really heard of it.
MK Ultra mind control. There's several different kind of branches of this, but MK Ultra was a division of the CIA. That was a real thing that came out of